What innocent question that someone asked you crushed you a little. Just happened recently actually. A few years ago I had a pretty awesome life. I was married. My husband and I were trying to have kids, and when I needed a car we just got me and sub in anticipation for needing it for kids. He had 2, and we planned to have 2, 3. Well, things didn't work out, and he ended up dying from drinking himself to death in January, and between that and 2 miscarriages, an ectopic and an IVF cycle that failed, I'm slowly coming to the realization that I'll never be a mother. It's painful to say the least. The kid I nanny for was sitting in my car and we were discussing his day when he says, "Nanny, why do you have such a big car when it's on Lagu?" I wanted to cry right there on the spot. It just really stung. But instead I told him it was because I knew I would be watching him and I needed a car big enough for him, which seemed to placate him, and he then started discussing Batman with me. Table for how many? The first time we went out for dinner after my dad completed suicide. That one hit like a truck. I grew up lower middle class and my parents had been severely injured by a drunk driver at the end of my 8th grade year and were disabled and no longer able to work. We basically had no money for school clothes, but my mother tried to get me a few cool shirts. I wasn't a popular kid and most people didn't really know much about me. In my freshman year of high school, one of the popular girls in my class asked, "Don't you have more than 3 shirts? I only ever see you in the same 3 shirts." High school in the 80s in the United States sucked. My mom accidentally called me after about 10 years of not talking. I answered all ready for a serious conversation. When I answered, she was like, "Wait, who's this?" I say, "Hey mom, it's Fraggle Rocks." Her reply is, "What hurt? Fraggle Rocks who? Why are you calling me mom?" She was so drunk high she didn't recognize her own daughter's name. Duck. I went to get a haircut for my fiance's funeral. It was Friday. He had died on today. My stylist, all bubbly, said, "It's been a while. The last time I saw you, you were just about to move in with your boyfriend. How's it going?" The word stuck, and I kind of rasped it out. Honestly though, her reaction was so wonderful. She was behind me and just put her hands firmly on my shoulders and looked me in the eyes in the mirror. No shock, no stupid platitudes, just silent, genuine empathy. The rest of the haircut was pretty quiet, but she did everything so, like, lovingly, and didn't make a big deal out of it when I cried a little. I teach 1st grade and was talking about how I've been married for 5 years. One student asked, "How could you not have a baby by now?" Not wanting to explain multiple miscarriages and IVF to a classroom of 6-year-olds, I said, "Being around all of you makes my heart so full that I don't think I have room in my heart for a baby." They all smiled. I smiled too. I've learned from my experience to never ask couples if they want to have a family. Ducking hurts. A friend looked at me and said, "I know we've talked about it before, but how did you break your nose?" I've never broken my nose, this is just how it looks. When will you get better so you can play with us? My niece, who was too young to understand what disabled meant, she's older now and understands I will never get better, and we have adapted playtime to do things I can handle as well. But that broke my heart. My son undergoing chemo and radiation treatment for a bone marrow transplant. People, meaning well of course, would always ask, "How's your son doing?" I'd always have to fake a smile and give some shallow hopeful answer, "He's fine. He's a fighter." But deep inside the question crushed me every time. No, he was suffering, teetered on the brink of life and death. He was not fine, and every time I heard that question I was reminded of it and had to swallow the pain. My son has since recovered, but it was a very tough time. A waiter asked me if my wife was pregnant once. She was just bloated from chemo side effects. Crushed me. So glad she didn't hear. She couldn't have had kids and she passed 2 years back. What's on her face? Mom. Little girl. I used to be a cashier and had terrible acne at the time. Rough night last night. Usually asked with a big smile. I was asked that all the time when I was younger because I had a really obvious tremor. Thing is, I did not drink or do drugs at all, and I had no idea what was wrong with me. I was eventually diagnosed with Graves' disease and treated for it, but I still have a bit of a tremor. I could never imagine getting cancer at such a young age. How are you this strong? Brave? Do you stay so positive? I've stopped counting the amount of people, especially working at the hospital. I'd expect a bit more sensitivity from them that have asked me that. Yes, I'm mid-20s, but it's not a choice that I'm staying strong. It's ducking survival. Every time someone asks me that, it feels like getting punched. Non-verbal. But the nurse at the flu shot station seemed unsure whether to give me the under 65 or over 65 consent form if I'm going to be mistaken for being that much older than my actual age. At least it should be in the context of me getting a senior discount. I got asked why I wouldn't stand up straight for a photo. I have kyphosis and I'm standing up as straight as I can. Why don't you ever go out? Well, because I don't have anyone to go out with. Damn. Specialist appointment and they did the normal thing of checking contact details. They asked if the contact number and details for my wife were still correct. I started crying. My wife passed away this time 12 months ago. Surprising how much one simple question asked in total innocence can bring you to your knees. I had no friends in summer school and a girl asked me if I had any friends. Like straight up. Do you have any friends? Then became friends with me but still. I worked in retail when I was younger and people would always be like, oh, do you have any ideas for Father's Day? What did you get your dad? My dad committed suicide when I was 16. They had no way of knowing that, but damn if it didn't hurt. So when are you going back for your master's degree? I was so proud of getting my bachelor's and had no intention of going back because how rough school was for me. Back in 6th grade we were watching a film in my science class. Of course, my table took this opportunity to just chat. Don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but my friend finds out I didn't know the word vagina, knew the body part, just not the term. I didn't get to explain that to the table because his immediate response was, "Didn't your dad ever have a talk with you?" I spent the rest of the period with my head down crying. My friend kind of freaked out. He demanded that no one at the table say anything sex related because he thought that maybe I was crying cause I wasn't mature enough to talk about that stuff yet. I told him later that night on RuneScape that my dad had been arrested about a year or two ago and that was the reason for my reaction. I'm 25 now and definition over it. LOL. But at the time, that question destroyed me. It was good though, he was the first person I talked about it with and it brought us closer at the time. When I was 13 my mom got a divorce from a man who I can only refer to as a step monster. I worked all summer to save up money since we didn't have a lot and I was worried we wouldn't have enough to pay the bills. I ended up having a few dollars left over and wanted to buy my mom a gift and she mentioned she needed a new watch for her birthday. I went to the jeweler and got a 100 gold Citizen Evo Drive watch. It was functional and it looked really nice. When I gave it to her, her first response was, "Thanks honey. Did it come in silver?" I was crushed. Insult to injury, she started dating a guy around the same time and he bought her a crappy silver watch. She ended up wearing his over mine 18 years later and it still hurts when I think about it. If my girlfriend at the time was my daughter, we are only 2 years different in age, but I look old as duck. I was only 22 LOL. Not a question, but my 8-year-old niece once remarked, "You don't laugh anymore." Why do you work in a factory when you have an honors degree in physics? My recently divorced ex and I worked at the same place. Divorce was not my idea, but he'd found someone new, and I was heartbroken. He ended up quitting at her insistence. 6 months after the divorce was final, a co-worker asked how ex-husband was doing. Hadn't seen him since he quit, yada yada. Behind my back another coworker was trying to wave first coworker off. Spent the rest of the shift crying on and off. Apparently coworker 1 was oblivious and didn't know we'd divorced. Just thought X had quit. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.